Hello everyone, this time we have a big challenge. It's the installation of a heat pump and everything associated with that. As well as being a lot of work and cost, various other work we plan is dependent on this project. When we moved in, we were planning to replace the old oil boiler with a ground source heat pump. That takes heat from the ground, and we thought our field would be the ideal source for the network of pipes that's needed, even though it requires a lot of digging. Here's an example of that. But every installer we spoke to recommended an air source heat pump instead. That takes heat from the air. You can think of it as an air conditioning unit in reverse. It's less efficient than a ground source pump in terms of electricity usage, but the efficiency gap has been closing and the upfront cost and disruption is a whole lot less. So that's what we chose. And so you know where we're heading. Here's our air source heat pump installed outside the back door. There's some inside equipment too, which we'll look at later. This is what we're replacing. It's the old oil boiler without its casing and on its way to boiler heaven. But it's not just a case of replacing an oil boiler with a heat pump. Heat pumps circulate water at a lower temperature through the radiators, so you have to make sure that they're as efficient as they can be, as well as needing a larger hot water cylinder, better control systems, and making sure that the house's insulation is up to scratch. Basically, it ends up being a new heating system. After a thorough survey, the installers we chose had recommended that 4 radiators were replaced and 3 new ones were added. This is one which had an upgrade from 2 panels to 3. And the new bathroom towel rails look rather good. As well as the radiator work, the installers discovered that the pipework upstairs was rather less than ideal, so there was a lot of additional disruption to replace that, as well as to fix a long-term leak where the cold water comes into the house. After a lot of work, the heat pump itself made an appearance. Then there was the new cylinder to install, along with a lot of pipework and electronics. After that, it was finally able to give us some hot water and heating. Removing the old oil boiler and oil supply to the house meant that we could finally remove the oil-fired Aga cooker in the kitchen. Nobody wanted a second-hand one, so the best we could do was call a scrap metal dealer. They wouldn't take it out of the kitchen though, so we have another big job to do, to dismantle a very heavy cooker in situ so that it's small enough to move. Since heat pumps work at a lower temperature, insulation is an important topic. For us, there were areas in the loft needing the insulation topping up. One job leads to another, and to make the insulation work a bit easier, we replaced the old single light bulb with a couple of new LED strip lights which had to be wired in. The insulation upgrade itself was a horrid job, scrabbling around on your knees in a dusty loft with a mask on, but hopefully a worthwhile one. An even bigger job was insulating underneath the lounge floor. That's a suspended floor with floorboards on joists. But that arrangement means there's a cold draft just under the floorboards, so it seemed like a good opportunity to do a more thorough job. The first step after clearing the room and labelling the floorboards was to take them up. That was hard work, but we had 2 new tools bought for the job. A pallet buster, which levers each board up, and a mini circular saw to cut the boards when necessary. Both were well worth having. After that, we insulated the heating pipes which were exposed, and then laid a breathable membrane across the joists, fixing it roughly in place with a staple hammer, also bought for the job thanks to a tip from a YouTube video. It was easy enough to add the insulation itself. We just used loft insulation which was as thick as possible to occupy the full height of the joists without being compressed. At one point, a mouse made its way up from the void under the floor. It didn't hang around for long though, and once the floor is back in place, it won't be able to do that again. Putting the floorboards back was a long job. We decided to screw each one rather than nail, and we used around 300 screws. What would we do without power tools? 2 boards had to be patched. One was suffering from woodworm, and the other was broken as we took it up. So here's the first section of the room done. The other 2 sections were a bit faster once we knew the technique. We've now been running the heat pump for several weeks, and it's been plenty warm enough in the house, even in a cold spell of a few days. The radiators run at a lower temperature though, so you can't do a sudden boost, so it's best to leave the house at a warmer baseline rather than let it cool down too much during the night or the middle of the day. Although the Mitsubishi heat pump works very well, there's room for improvement with the control system. The controller on the wall is not that easy to use, although there is an app which helps a bit. The reports are good though, and you can see how temperatures have changed over the last 24 hours, for example. We won't be able to directly compare heating costs before and after, since we've only just moved in, but although we expect to be using more electricity thanks to the heat pump, we'll have no other fuel costs, and the planned solar panels will help us out with our own electricity generation. All in all, a worthwhile job, if rather a big one. See you next time.